Hi, Lisa Christensen here, the blogger from A Dream Rose, and I have a Blue Night Stamp lighthouse for you guys to watch me watercolor. It's really fun. I'm using the Prima Decadent palette, sorry, Decadent Pie palette, which really works. I used that for the uh, tutorial that I did last week on the Peaceful Lake. And so I like this palette because of the beautiful blues and the greens and the natural colors you can get. I'm sure they look beautiful with with desserts if you're painting desserts, but I really like it for the natural look. So let's get started. All right, so right now I have the lighthouse and I am stamping this on Hobby Lobby Master's Touch Art Studio watercolor. It's 140 pound. It works great for cards, and it's pretty cheap. I got this on sale half off, so that helps. And I just cut it down to an A2 size card, so 5.5 by 4.25. And I did not leave so it's like the full size of the card because I want it to look watercolored and painterly. All right, so I'm going to take my ink, jet black ink, archival ink, and I'm going to just get it all inked up, ready to go. If you haven't used this handle, it's really handy. I really like it. I'll show you why. Because it's just like an extra stamp base that has magnets, and you can buy this magnet right here, and then you're not getting your fingers all inky, which I love. When you're stamping on watercolor paper, there's two sides. You want the smooth side. You don't want the wavy side or the textured side. And I am almost sure I'm going to need two impressions because the watercolor paper is watercolor paper, so it takes a lot of ink. And I think I inked it pretty good and it looks good, so I'm going to call it good. All right, so the stamps are awesome. They do such a great job of creating their stamps, and it's deep etched, so you don't get those black shadowy lines, and that's what I really like. So I'm going to go ahead and take this off of my Misty. I'm done with that. Put my Misty away. All right, let's get started watercoloring. I'm really excited to show you how to watercolor. Okay. So I always like to start with I'm going to recreate this. So I'm going to start with the light because that's my focal point. That's the point that I really want to start with. And then after that, I can work my way through. So I'm going to start. I'm using it's like the gold color. It's the metallic gold. And I just kind of dab it. And I just kind of want it to like shine away, right? Like I don't want a whole lot, but I do want it to look shine. So I'm dabbing, and this is a dry paper, so I'm not using any water. Okay, so now that we'll let this light, the yellow, dry. And while we do that, I'm going to work on the rocks. Okay. And you guys can see my water right here, and then I have a paper towel right here, and I have another clean brush. So I have a brush for pigment and a clean brush, and you'll see me, you'll see what I'm doing. All right, so for the rocks, I started with this like this brownish color right here. And it really is more red than brown, but it looks brown anyways. And I'm going to do this like yellow sandy thing. I'm just getting like a whole bunch of different colors. So there's this and then I'm just I am kind of paying attention to where my lines are because I don't want the brown to get into the water necessarily. And I want my lighthouse to look pretty light. This is going to be a darker rock than probably in the picture, but that's okay. If you looked at my other videos, you know that I like to move pigment around a lot with water. This is not the time I'm doing that. Okay, that looks good. It looks really brown, and that's okay. To give it some texture, I am going to just dot in a couple of water spots, because rocks have a lot of texture. Okay, now I'm going to go in and do this part. Now, it is bleeding. I am bleeding this card. I'm not saying I'm going to the complete edge. That's called a bleed. Or maybe these rocks are a little bit lighter in color. I don't know. I hope not, because it's dark time, so I want it to look pretty dark. Now, if you are new to watercolor and you don't like the idea of it, I didn't tape my panel down. I don't feel like I'm gonna have to with this card, but you could. You totally could. One way to do that, and I'll show you right now, is to just take some tape and then very carefully do that, and then that'll stay, so then you don't have to hold it down if you wanted to. You don't have to. I see a little splash right there. I'm gonna move that so it doesn't look, and I see some harsh lines which I really don't want, so I'm gonna soften those lines right there. You don't ever know if you have soft lines or hard lines until it starts drying. And once it starts drying, you kind of, that's the only thing you want to pay attention to. So now that we're good, let's keep working on our rocks. I'm actually going to I'm just adding some variety. I want the rocks to look like it's watercolored. And then I'm going to go in with this darker brown. And actually, it's really orange. I'm going to add a little bit of blue to make that brown richer. Does that? There. So now it looks really dark, but it's going to dry lighter. Remember that. So there's always room to add darker pigment. And this is a pretty wet rock, so I'm going to add. I used that darker blue for this orangey reddish color because it's a complement, and I knew that it would make a really pretty neutral. And that's what I think I love about this palette, is that you can get so many neutrals just by adding their complementary color. All right, so the rock is good. The rocks are good. I'm going to now work on the water. And before I do that, I'm going to add that color to the lighthouse. I don't want it to be, I want it to be a very light brownish color, just as if the light was, you know, shining on it to make it look like a white lighthouse. And then when we go in, I'll show you, it's gonna look a little bluish once I get the sky going. It'll look really cool. All right. I am going to create a very simple, and what I would call a simple sky. I'm not messing around too much with the sky. I am going to add some of this really pretty teal, like ocean color blue right here. I feel like I'm just playing around. Okay, and now this is where the fun starts. And I feel like I have to be kind of delicate because I don't want it to be green. And that's the hardest thing about painting a night sky, is you don't want the blue or the yellow to mix, as you'll get a green color, and that's not what we're going for. That's okay that brown bled. That'll add to the, we're gonna add some darker blue, and so it's not really gonna matter. Now I do have to work fast. You do have to work fast. So if you're not confident yet in your watercolor skills, wait for the rocks to dry and then do one side at a time. But since I'm fairly confident that that I can paint this looking pretty good, I didn't wait, which is fine. You don't have to. It's your paint. But if you don't feel confident, wait for it to dry and then paint some more. What I'm doing is I'm just kind of adding this color. You always work light to dark. And I am paying attention. I don't really want the blue into my rock necessarily. If it happens as it is watercolor. All right, I don't want this hard line, remember? So I'm lightly taking that blue off. Okay, so I got that really cool blue going on, but that clearly does not work for the night sky. So let's go into the darker blue. And because it's already wet, it's just gonna kind of give this really pretty painterly look. And then depending on how much dark you want it to look, I don't want to completely let go of that light blue because I like that light blue. I just don't want it to be. And again, like I am really paying attention to where the light is. And that looks good. It's gonna look even better once it's dried. Okay. And now you do the same thing to the other side. So there's not, I don't feel like there's a whole lot. And then the water is about the same way. And I like to make my corners dark, and I'm definitely going to be watching out for the horizon line. In fact, I'm going to add a little, like that dark blue line right there. That will give it, again, you want some value. You want to be able to say, okay, there's the horizon line. That's where it gets deep. And see how it's wet? So that is just going to blend up into the sky, which is what I want. I really like painting light and like the sky. I don't know, it's just fun. Once you get the hang of it, it really is pretty. I don't know if I'm loving this line, so I'm going to add just a little bit of water to blend it. And I'm just going to add some water to make the pigment move a little bit. But I don't want it to get into the yellow. All right, we're gonna call that good. We're gonna let it dry. All right, so now let's go to the rocks. And same thing. I'm adding. And again, a lot of watercolor is all about just moving the pigment around and getting it to look the way you want it to look. And if you can get that figured out, then you are on your way to becoming what I would call a master watercolor. And I think most watercolorists would agree that if you can figure out your pigment to water ratio and then move your pigment around, you're going to make really interesting cards, and they're going to be just gorgeous. So a lot of it is just playing with your colors, warming up with different color combinations, seeing what does work, what isn't going to work. And I think I want this part to be really dark. I love having contrast. I love having that dark and light, and I think that's what makes paintings, like if you look at other master paintings, that's there. I'm going to let that be. I forgot to color that rock, so again I'm going to go back in with my brown, and then with that other brown that I used the blue and that reddish brown, I'm just dotting it in. And there you go. There would be your completed panel. And if you wanted your if you wanted this to be a little bit blue, I would just add a tiny bit of, I would call this glazing, because that's what we're doing right now. We're glazing we want the brown to show, but we also want a little bit of blue. So then it doesn't look so stark. Or maybe we want it to, and because it's just a little bit wet, it's gonna, there's my shadow for the lighthouse. And we'll do it to the other side, because the other side actually does have the shadow from the way the stamp was made. So we'll do that a little bit darker. There we go. Now it looks, and if I am being very particular, which maybe I want to be a little, you can always add more, and then I just kind of bleed it out so it doesn't look like I just added that line. There. Now if you wanted a textured, if you wanted this guy to look more stormy, you could always add some water droplets to this guy. And I'll show you how. You don't want a lot of water droplets, but a little bit can really make it look pretty. And what I would do is just, you can already see that it's activating, and then that will just add more texture. It'll look like a stormy sky. So there is my lighthouse panel, and I'll take it off with the tape, and then that is what it looks like. Isn't that beautiful? Look at that light. It just looks so, it looks like a lighthouse in the night, and that's how easy it is. So there's that. Now I did have that same panel completed. This is what it would look like dry. Remember, it always dries lighter. I'm gonna move this away. Clean up my station real quick. I love watercolor because it's so easy to clean up. I'm gonna move my water because me and water do not mix, and I always spill my water. So very lightly, I'm going to, with a watercolor panel, you are going to want to use a lot of tape. That should do it. All right, and then I can just adhere it. I know you might be saying, oh, you make it look so easy. I've mounted so many things in my life. So there you go. And then inside the card, I put many thoughts are with you today. And this is from the Blue Night Bible verse 2, which I thought worked really well for this. And I'm going to send it to a friend that's going through a rough time. And hopefully she'll enjoy that. She's a good Christian friend of mine. And anyways, I was thinking of her when I made this lighthouse, and I know lighthouses are a great symbol for hope and like good things to come and protection. So I'm hoping that this will like brighten her day. Anyways, if you like this, please give me a thumbs up. I'd love to hear your comments on if you think watercolor is hard. Sometimes painting light and watercolor is tricky, but I hope that this tutorial gave you a good way of painting a night sky with the light. So anyways, enjoy your painting, and we'll see you later.